An inward block can be done as a high block, a middle block, or even as a low block, but we'll just be covering the middle block for today. As the name suggests, the blocking tool goes from an outward to an inward trajectory. And the blocking tool will end up on the chest line. Now it can be done in any stance, so sometimes you're going to end up full facing, sometimes half facing, depending on the stance, but in all cases, that blocking tool will be on that chest line. So get used to the blocking motion by swinging the arm inwards. So the motion mainly comes from the shoulder, there. And then you've got that twisting action of the forearm at the end, so you twist sharply at the end. Now once you've got used to that motion, adopt an L stance and practice the movement again, but this time make sure that the elbow is bent 45 degrees at the end and the top of the fist lines up at shoulder level. Do this a few times and then start introducing the movement of the opposite arm, which goes forward and back, and you do this simultaneously. Now up to now, all the blocks I've shown you, you end up crossing the arms, but not in this case. With inward block, the arm moves out and in, and the opposite arm moves forward and back, so at no stage do they need to cross, but that's okay. So practice this a few times and sink onto the back leg, so you've got 70% of the weight onto the back leg, and twist your forearms simultaneously very sharply. Okay? And then you're ready to practice it as a spot block, going from parallel stance to L stance. But rather than stepping forward, let's try it going backwards for a change. So the first thing you do is balance on the balancing leg. So you relax and pivot the right foot very slightly, 15 degrees. You go slightly half facing and go into a neutral position. Then you wind up, bringing the arm out, reaching with the opposite arm as you raise the body and step back and sink into the L stance as you perform the block. So again, so you relax, up, down. Now to get more power, as usual, jerk the abdomen, but also try pulling the opposite arm really sharply and twisting very sharply at the end. Like that. And also try it the other way. Like that. So here's an example of 10 inward blocks performed as a spot block, going from parallel stance to L stance, stepping backwards and alternating sides. You won't find inward block in any of the patterns you learn as a colour belt. Although in pattern Chung Mutul you have this movement, which you do in sitting stance, where your body's full facing and your blocking tool ends up on the centre line. Although your arm moves in an inward direction, it's not called an inward block because, as I said before, an inward block ends up on the chest line. If you end up on the centre line and your body's full facing, we call it a front block. So try not to get confused about that. But even though you don't need inward block in any of the patterns as a colour belt, it's still worth learning if you're a yellow belt or above, because you can use it in 3-step sparring, semi-free sparring, and free sparring. So I always recommend yellow belts and above to learn the inward block. And the block can be used with other tools, for example, the palm or the knife hand, but not the inner forearm. That wouldn't be logical. You wouldn't get power. But outer forearm is very useful. So that's it for inward block, and in the next lesson I'm going to be covering pattern Dangun tool. So I hope you join me for that. I'll see you then.